In the world of business building, we often wonder if it could get any more complicated. GRC, GDPR, ESG, zero carbon, green hydrogen, cybersecurity, and big data. Let's not forget the long funding processes that can make you crazy. If you are a world changing founder and innovator, how do you connect with the support that you need to move ahead? Well, this podcast puts the people, planet, profit through partnerships theory to action by helping you to see opportunities in every episode to create a meaningful partnership. The innovators, experts, and diplomats we interview are all looking for partners, and that could be you. No time like the present to find out. So welcome to Frontrunners Innovate with your host, Global Business Developer Mary Kurek. Hello, everyone. Today we are visiting with two of our favorite frontrunners, Alana and Dean Stott. They are experts in personal security, not the cyber kind, the actual physical security kind. And we'll learn more about their business that they have launched with this in mind. And we'll also find out about their brand new podcast called Behind the Scene. And so we're excited to learn about that. I've been seeing little bits and pieces of that on Facebook and on LinkedIn, so I'm excited to learn more. So that you know who I am. I'm Mary Kurek. I'm president of Frontrunners Development, a global business development company that connects business impact partners. My co-host today is Jeremy Bagwill, and he is our expert developer in sustainable projects in Florida, has deep connections in spaces relevant to today's conversations, and you'll find that out. And this is just like another example of knowing the people in your network well enough to see the opportunities. So it will all be shown to you in good time here. So let's get rolling. Jeremy, talk to us a little bit about you and what you're doing there in Florida and all over the place, because you're all over the place these days.
Yeah, well, it's nice to meet you, Dean and Alana. Mary, thank you. I appreciate it as always. I'm Jeremy Bagwell. I specialize in innovative, sustainable products. I represent multiple companies out of Europe that are all in the innovative front, patented, and our focus and my focus is really reducing energy. You know, I'm really looking about creating communities, creating cities that are deleveraged from the infrastructure. You know, with water, with electric. And in that, I think our way of doing that is reducing and not so much producing. I think we have, you know, many different modalities to produce electricity, and we're beginning to, you know, find ways to produce water. And now it's reducing the consumption and putting ourselves in a better position that we can leverage. So, you know, the last 10 years, I've really worked on developing and testing and creating these systems and products. And in that, I've been able to gratefully really be able to meet a lot of wonderful people and make incredible relationships in that space. And that's given me the opportunity to represent, you know, private equity and really be able to have the full solution to be able to create these communities. So that kind of in a nutshell is about me, and I'm excited about learning about you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, so Jeremy has some really interesting connections in spaces that are relevant to what you guys do. He mentioned the private equity. So when he goes at these big developments, they're huge, and sometimes they're in other countries, right, Jeremy? So that's right. We are global when we look at these things. So, you know, as you guys talk a little bit about what you're doing, he's going to be taking mental notes, and we'll see where it all goes from there. But Dean, you want to start first?
Yeah, introduce myself.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, perfect. So originally from the UK, as you can tell by the accent. I was in the UK Special Forces as a tier 1 operator for 16 years, and then unfortunately had a tragic parachuting accident which shortened my career. If that hadn't happened, I'd still be in the military, no doubt at all. So I had to leave the military. You know, people with our skill sets, without sounding like Liam Neeson, you know, we naturally end up working in the security sector. But I wanted to work in the security industry, but I didn't want to be doing what my friends were doing. A lot of them were in Afghanistan, Iraq, working on oil fields, doing 6 weeks rotations. I spent enough time there. I wanted to gather as much information as I could about the security industry. And the security industry is very diverse. You know, when you look at me, people think I'm a doorman from the local nightclub. because of the way I look, but it's very diverse. Everything from surveillance, coaching on mentoring, consultation, crisis management, cyber now as well. So my first job, I helped set up the British Embassy in Benghazi during the Arab Spring within 48 hours of leaving the military, and soon identified that these larger security companies were charging six, seven-figure sums for crisis management and evacuation plans, which weren't actually in place. And it's just as good as the paper that it's written on. And we've seen this repeat itself over the years. And so Alana and I worked together. Alana originally was going to come in the security industry with me as a close protection officer, and found out she was pregnant with our first daughter. So she very much manages everything behind the scenes and coordinates the planning. So I told her that I had an idea, and there was a huge proliferation of weapons at the time, and I buried weapons from Tunis to Egypt and designed my own evacuation plans and sold them to the oil and gas sector. 11 years ago this week, when your American ambassador got killed, I was in Benghazi that evening and single-handedly got an oil company safely back to Tripoli from Benghazi. 2 years later, I was called upon again to single-handedly evacuate the Canadian embassy out of Libya as well. So ended up doing a lot of high-profile missions. But in between those as well, was very fortunate to go to the Olympics, the World Cup, take the UAE royal family super yacht from Barcelona to Maldives, train the Kurdish Special Forces. I was literally, every job I was doing, I was learning more about the industry and building a great network around the world, and then doing that. After the Canadian embassy, Alana had, told me that we had a conversation, and chapter 16 in my book is called Dead or Divorce, which is where we are now in my life. And something had to change if I was going to continue with that sort of tempo. And I disconnected from society. So as you'll get to know me and Alana, we work a lot in the philanthropy sector as well, and had done a lot with veterans up until then. So at the age of 40, I'd only ever cycled 20 miles. I wanted to do a world record. And Alana then found the world's longest road, which runs from southern Argentina to northern Alaska, 14,000 miles. So she clearly wanted me out of the house at this point. And we worked together. Alana ran the campaign. A good friend of ours, Prince Harry, was just about to launch a campaign on mental health. Focused, that was the campaign. We had the challenge. The world record was 117 days. I smashed the world record by 17 days, became the first man in history to do it under 100 days. And more impressively, Alana raised $1.4 million for mental health. And so up until then, my life had been very much under the radar, either in the special forces or working high-end security jobs, to now all of a sudden becoming more of a profile public figure. Now, we didn't look beyond the bike ride. We didn't see careers in guest speaking. We didn't see books, didn't see TV opportunities, which have all come to us. But as Mary's touched on security, we've never actually left that arena. So the world sees a Dean and Alana Stott. I actually chatted to the head of CIA, one of the Middle Eastern countries, 3 months back. He said, "I've just Googled you." I said, "Don't Google me, because what you will see is what Instagram, Facebook will show you, but actually we've still very much been in that security sector." So we're now becoming a bit more vocal that we'd never left, and we're still working at the highest level. We assisted getting 1,200 people out of Afghanistan, some of the biggest names and organizations in the US, again, just purely through the reputation that we have. We don't have a website. Everything's word of mouth, which is probably has its pros and cons, But that's me up to date, and Alana will no doubt fill in all the other gaps.
Okay, it's got a story right there. Alana, you're up.
Yeah. Gosh, I've never came straight after Dean. A couple of disclaimers as well, Mary. This is how badly organized we are right now. I genuinely thought we were interviewing you, Jeremy. So I'm sitting here. So,
hey, that can happen at some point.
Well, I'm happy that's not the case.
So yeah, I'm from Aberdeen in Scotland. I grew up there. I have two brothers, a younger brother and an older brother. Unfortunately, when I was quite young, my mum passed away. So I had the responsibility quite young of my little brother, but I'd been working since I was 11, so I was pretty adept in the working world anyway by the time she passed when I was 15. But what I'd been doing is really my first ever job. I worked in a cafe, a railway cafe. And that was really, actually, it was just for the food, because my mum was the type of person, she provided what we needed. We had the food that we needed, we had the clothes that we needed, we had a clean house, but everything else was on us. If we wanted anything else, we had to go and get it. She was a single mum with 3 jobs. So the first thing I wanted was just to try something different in the food section. So it was a ham and cheese croissant that they sold at this railway cafe. So I was like, how do I manage to pay for one of these? I'm going to actually work for them. So they wouldn't pay me in cash and paid me in ham and cheese croissants, which was awesome. But what it did do is it gave me that little experience of working with cash, working with customers, all these types of things. So when I was 12 and a job came up that was actually being paid, I already had the experience. So I applied. And this was a fast food place, and the guy that ran it was an alcoholic. So he would set up every day and then he would just go to the pub. So I was on my own in this fish and chip place. I probably gave a lot of food poisoning around that time as well. So I apologize. When I was 13, my big brother wanted to get a job. He seen a job in telesales, telemarketing, but he was too scared to actually ask the person, to phone up and ask the person. So he said, Alana, will you do it for me? I said, sure. When I called, they said, well, would you like a job as well? And I said, well, cool, but I'm only 13. Is that okay? It's cash in hand. It is a commission only job, but yeah, you can come along. So I went along and I started working there. So this was basically, you're selling windows and doors over the phone. Any appointments that you made, you got paid like $2, the equivalent of $2 for the appointment. So that gave me my first taste of commission work, and that, you can make as much money as you want to make. Really, it's just how hard you work. So I learned about the sales environment. I watched everybody that worked there, the good, the bad, how it kind of happened. But it was when mum got sick and when mum eventually passed that it changed from being, this is money that I'm earning, to money that I need to pay the bills, I need to pay rent, I need to pay electricity, etc. So then it was a different mindset, but still in the same way that I wanted to earn money. During this whole period, even up to this point, I always liked helping other people as well. It was something from about 8 years old. I was always working in some sort of fundraiser or something was happening. My great auntie Molly kind of done a lot of the raising of me, and she was an old lady who just believed in helping people. That was the way her life was. So she taught me a lot of who I am today, really. When I was later on in my teens, I got offered a job in debt collecting. Because I already had experience with money, I'd actually been doing some door-to-door sales at this point. So I had experience walking and knocking on doors. But in this time, debt collecting was very much a male job. It was the aggressive job. It was the knock on the doors, force people to give you money. But 17, I wasn't really going to be able to force people to give me money from what I looked like standing on the doorstep. So I thought I'll develop my own method. And the method really was to help the person I was talking to. I would do a budget plan. I would speak to them, find out what's gone on, why they've got into this situation, just go through everything with them and then find a way out for them. So I would really work with the person. And what happened then was I became one of the top debt collectors in Scotland. People would pay me first because I was helping them. So that led on to when I became a bank manager. So again, I applied for a job as a bank manager, no experience, but I'd been working in finance for a while now. I'd been doing these things, working with customer service. So I went along to the interview, there was the list of, bachelor's degree, 5 years experience, all this. And I was like, well, I don't have any of that, but just sit down and talk to me. And the guy was like, yeah, you've got the job. This was not long before the 2008 crash. So I started in banking, not knowing much about it at all, for then the crash to happen, and had to learn like everything the same way as everybody else was really learning, because it was a whole new world of banking that was happening then. And that was really around about not long before I met Dean. And one of the first things Dean said to me is, a bank manager, something you've always wanted to do? And I was like, absolutely not. It's really boring. Money is just something I'm really good at, but it's boring. He says, what do you want to do? I said, I want to be a spy. And I think what got me with Dean was he never flinched. He never laughed at me. He never said anything. The next day he turned up with the application form for MI6, and his friend who worked in MI6 was on the phone ready to talk me through the whole process. So that was, yeah, that was really when I went, actually, you know, everything that I've always thought, all these dreams, everything that I've wanted to do, this person's going to do it with me and believe that I haven't got my head in the clouds and that these things are possible. So I did go through the application and I got to stage 4, and that was the family background. And then they rejected me from then. So I don't know what's in my family background. Nobody's told me, but it gave me the taste for it anyway. And that's when I said to Dean, like, what could we do in the private field? Dean was injured now. He was going to be getting out. So we said, well, look, let's go down, because although he had his private security qualifications from the military, they didn't transfer over in the UK, at least, into civilian qualifications. So he would have to reset any exams, etc. Anyway, so we found this company called Anubis, who was run by a guy called Ginge Johnson, who was ex-SAS. He trained the Mujahideen back in the 70s and 80s, like really cool guy. And he was like, yeah, you can both come along, both do the training. Obviously, Dean's already way up to standard. I'm learning all the different things, but it was really interesting for me just working with this group of people who were training to be close protection officers, but they weren't really able to think outside the box. There was only a handful of people within that group who were actually using their brains, and not just the fact that they had military experience. So I learned that I had the ability to do this. I didn't have physical abilities so much, even though we do the close combat training and all that kind of thing, which was when I found out I was pregnant with my daughter just after the close combat training. So I've always apologized to Molly for what she went through that day. But we came out of there. Obviously, now I'm pregnant. We're starting up a company. Arab Spring started to happen. So Libya was pulling Dean every day, and I realized that the logistics and planning side of security is something that I would be really good at. This kind of thing I've done forever. So if I stay in the background and Dean's out there doing the work, it could actually work out really well together. And that's not to say it's been easy along the way. There's definitely been people that have got in the way, people that wanted to take advantage of Dean, people that want to have Dean do all the work while they make all the money. So I'm kind of always in the background there, like batting them off and doing things along that way. But yeah, we done the bike ride. The bike ride was really to help Dean refocus into a different way, because Libya was getting super dangerous all the time. And again, I put my money raising skills into practice for that, and enjoyed that phase. And then then we moved over here, and we've now got, we came over with 2 kids. We've now got 3 kids. And the security company here, we definitely decided that we had to follow it here, because our method of security is so different to how the Americans see or do security, you know, because we'd never worked with weapons. You know, Dean evacuated the Canadian embassy out of Libya without using a single weapon. It was all just, you know, locals and connections and people that can help him. So we do have a very different way of doing things that works for us. Not to say that if we didn't need to pick up a weapon and do it, we would do it, but we try and do it fully intelligence as much as possible before using the brawn. And I think that's about it. Mary,
That's good. Well, you've led us into the security, which I was going to talk about later, but I think it's such a good segue here. So why don't you guys talk about the services that you do provide under your security work? Because the last time we spoke, you brought up a couple of new things I didn't even think about. You know, the college kids going off and things to think about there. And so, you know, give us a kind of a little bit of a rundown on the services. So whichever one of you wants to speak to that.
Do we go, Lana, or me?
Yeah, I'll start, and then you can fill in.
I'll fill in the gaps.
Yeah. Obviously, Dean got pulled. I mean, look at him. He kind of automatically gets pulled into the tough guy stuff. So there was Libya, Somalia, Yemen, you know, you name it. If it was a bad country, Dean would be there at some point. But coming here, we've realized that our skills are in the kind of softer skills as well. So I work a lot in human trafficking. That's probably my main area of focus outside of this. So things like child online protection, how to keep kids safe, how to keep families safe is something that I'm really focused on. And we realized by blending the security work that we do with that kind of thing, we can look at a package as a whole for a family. So if we took a family, Dean would be looking at the head of the household, his companies, her companies, how we can look at the security around that, but then we can also look at the whole thing as a package, like what are their kids doing, what social media have they got, who's in their lives, if there's nannies, are we doing background checks there, what is the actual infrastructure of the house like. We can do everything across a household. So we realized that was something that was I guess a gap in the industry. But also, as Mary says, we do the mentorship, so super high net worth, ultra high net worth clients that their children have never really known about money or never really understood what it is to have physical money. When they're out in the big bad world by themselves, it can get very difficult. So we'll do training around that. We'll do training if somebody's up to do a gap year or they're going to Spain for university. We do such a variety, but it all comes into protecting the family as a whole.
Yeah, I like the fact that you have an intelligence around that the average person would know. So from the standpoint of safety or traveling, whether that's for business or whatever it may be, I know that when we were working on a project and there was a sticky wicket, then Alana took some notes and went away and came back and gave us some intel that we would not have known, that was like a level deeper than would have been on the surface, that maybe some people in government or different places would maybe not share with you or maybe just wouldn't know to share with you. So Dean, tell us a little bit more about the services.
Yeah, so I think you touched on it there as well. It's more the intelligence led. So the years that we've been in this industry, we've built up a great network around the world. I call them the subject matter experts. And so where we've sort of been successful is in some of the stuff that we've done is we haven't come and brought our own team into a country. I'll use Colombia, for example. I'll bring our own team into Colombia and think we're going to make it happen. No, majority of the work, as much work as we can put on the locals' plates, the better, because then they want to work for you. They see that you're helping them. And then 25% of that work we have to do ourselves. So from that, we've built up a great network. And everywhere we go around the world, as you just touched on there, Alana will get you human. And when you say human, that's human intelligence. It's not what you can Google on .gov.uk or, because if you follow .gov.uk or .gov America, you'd never leave the house. You'd just scaremonger you. So it's actually about what is actually happening on the ground. But the areas we sort of focus, we still do work with corporates, especially more in the crisis management. The issues that we had in the past is some of these big corporations have their own security teams and security directors, and they see you as a threat. They're like, these guys are more qualified. They think I'm after their job, and I'm not after their job at all. What we want to do is we want to come in and sort of help them and train. And then there's the family office area with that as well. There's a lot of these family offices, they don't realize they're actually at risk. And as Alana's touched on there, it's the digital footprint that their children are leaving, the kidnappers and stuff like that. So really we do a whole broad area of services. We tend to, where we start is a security vulnerability assessment. We'll just come in and just look at your assets, look at your online presence, and then we'll then present that to you and say, well, actually, you don't need this, but you do actually need to maybe divert some money to here. And what we tend to do, which some security companies don't like, is we come in at a lower price. What we tend to find with and I never name and shame, I always call them the big five, is they're the biggest companies in the world. So they have multiple offices around the world. They have multiple staff. And so that comes at a cost. So their cost to you as a client is exponential. But where they're needing services on the ground, they're either coming to me or my subject matter experts around the world. So I still have access to them. I can still deliver to the client what they need, and we just cut out the middleman, which reduces that by about 50%. So, yeah.
And I think that would be our for-profit, I would say, side of what we do, but that's probably, I would actually probably put that into the 40%, maybe even less mode. Most of what we actually do is the non-profit side of it. So we take all that skills and everything that we've learned over here, and we'll do, if somebody needs help, and most people will come to us, if we need to evacuate people out of Afghanistan, what happened in Hawaii, we need help getting infrastructure and things going on across there. We need funding for this project. Is this person safe to work with? All these kind of things we do as the help. And I think we established really early on that the way to live is to do it with purpose. So we've been doing that for a while now.
Yeah. And the services wise, for example, it's everything from when we run the family offices, maybe a family want to go travel. They're like, oh, we need security, but we'll do the intelligence and we'll actually then feed back, actually you don't need security. This place is quite safe, but if there are areas that they do need, then we can upscale and downscale. So the company is Dean and Alana. It's always been the company, but when the Prime Minister Libya needed me, I scaled up to 150 special forces guys in a week. 4 weeks later, downscale back to 8. So we can upscale and downscale accordingly. So we don't have those overheads that other security companies have, but we do actually have access to the best in the world.
Fantastic. Jeremy, I'm going to come to you. Questions, thoughts?
Yeah. So, there's, with a lot of stuff, so I kind of come with my perspective on the things that I'm dealing with all the time. And, I know a lot of things that we're doing, we're trying to create these self-sufficient communities, truly self-sufficient, and I think in doing that, we're asking people to change their perspective on reality for the most part. There's a different way to live in the world, right? And I think we've been so conditioned to believe in certain things that people are afraid to come outside of their comfort zones. And, but to be able to do that, I think we integrate these different systems, one, with building and with the environment and also with security. I think security and people's idea of what safety is, it's all about education in my point, and that's really the focus that me and my team have really been concentrating on right now is educating on the why. So I think with, what you guys are doing and your way about going about it, I think educating on that right now, and these are the reasons why we see that you need to be aware of these situations. You need to be aware. And so are you guys in that? Are you guys like training people in how to be more secure and how to live lives that are more aware of circumstances? Is that what kind?
Yeah, so we're offering that either to families themselves on travel security awareness, and on Alana will touch on in a minute, child exploitation, online protection. So there's the physical, and then there's the digital, all the way up to the big corporates. I used to Siemens Energy, any of their engineers that had to go anywhere to medium or high level risk countries, you have to come in and do travel security risk training. And as you touched on, a lot of it's actually about education. They're like, oh my God, I've got to go to Saudi Arabia. Well, actually, Saudi Arabia is a beautiful country. Don't worry about it. Somalia is a beautiful country. Do not, always say, don't watch the telly, just don't watch the telly. But then once they're educated and when they understand, and a lot of the issues is just cultural awareness. That's what I see here in America. There's some great security companies here in America that do well in America, but where they really struggle is outside of the borders. And it's not because they're not good. It's just they're not aware of the cultural awarenesses and things like that. So that's where we sort of come in and do training. We do case studies. And then if they're still not comfortable, then obviously then we can provide, it scales up. Then we can provide the training as well. We used to, I think where Mary mentioned earlier, I don't know whether they do it in America, but in the UK, they have gap years in universities where the students will go travel the world. They'll go travel the world. So we used to get some high net worth parents like, Dean, Alana, can you speak to our kids? And it's like, yeah. So we'll go in and we'll do the training with them. We'll teach them about the basics and the advanced stuff, what to do when they're out and about in the world. And then we'll speak to the parents afterwards. And if they're still not comfortable, yes, we can put a tracker on them. And if they're still not comfortable,
behave yourself when you're in Dubai.
Yeah. And if they're still not comfortable, we can put a surveillance team on them as well. We got a client. There's a client in London from one of the Middle Eastern royal families. She thinks her father's left her to her own devices in London at university. She's 21. She don't realize she's got six-man team on her 24 hours a day. So, we can scale up and scale down according. But education is key for us, because if they are educated, then it helps us as well. You know, I mean, they're not making silly mistakes. And one thing you were talking about there with your sustainability problems and security in some of these countries is bring work to those locals, train the trainer, train the locals, because you want to let them be self-sufficient and then just be able to just drop back and watch them do it themselves.
That's right. I agree. And that's a big thing, right now. And because we are, looking to grow globally, to bring awareness in this different way of walking this world. And I think that when we're going into those places, like you said, we're unaware, we're aware of our local surroundings, our national, how we have to deal. But when we're walking into these other areas, it's like, is it safe to come in here and work with this government? Is the people that we're bringing in to execute on the project? Because you're right, trying to bring as many local resources, local people to give back to those areas, make them self-sufficient as well. But we're also looking to change things there. Yeah. So to have the confidence of going in and bringing in the money and bringing in the infrastructure and the people to help change things a little bit.
Yeah.
That takes, confidence and ability and confidence and security, so I think I really see a lot of, cohesiveness here and the things that you guys are doing and the big picture of what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody does anything. I often see people say, well, you're not doing that, so you're such a bad person. I don't think anybody's doing it because they just don't understand. When we moved over to America. America is such a vast country that you can literally do anything here. I can't remember what the percentage is about who has a passport here. But a lot of them haven't traveled and seen the rest of the world and see how other people live. And everything is available here. I think that blew my mind when I first got here, that if I wanted an Amazon delivery, I could have it within 2 or 3 hours if I wanted to. If I wanted, if any type of food that I want could be in my door in the next hour. These types of things, while everybody will say this is amazing, it's switched off our ability to, again, the awareness side of it. We've always got a phone in our hand, so we're always looking down. We're not looking at the world around us and seeing what's happening. And, in Scotland, they are really quite good at the recycling, whereas I came here and it was like everything's getting thrown in the bin. And I was like, whoa, is nobody recycling here? What's going on? And I was telling Dean the other day when we were in that situation after Mum had died, and money was super tight, £30 a week was what we had between the three of us to feed us all. And Dean was like, were you hungry? And I was like, never. We always had food. We were just very careful about what we bought. Everything was cooked. We could spread out over the week. I think even I was speaking to my assistant the other day, and she doesn't know how to cook. She's never been taught like those basic skills about how to take ingredients and make them into something, because everything is just so readily available in packages that then get thrown out, and then another package is made to then fill this other package. So again, what in the security world, what we do is try and do the educational side of it, but a lot of it is so ingrained that you're having to try and break this cycle. If you looked at my daughter, she's been in this world for 12 years, and the whole time she's been involved in the security industry. She was, I think 6 months old when she done her first yacht show. She's been through so many different things. She was on a plane when she was 2 weeks old. But now, if she walks into a hotel, she'll know exactly how many doors there are between our room and the fire escape. She can feel her way. She knows how to. My kids are the ones who do the room lock up at the end of the night. They do all the checks. She does things like, she came to me a few weeks ago and said, Mum, one of my friends has got their location services turned on in Snapchat. How should I talk to them? What should I say to tell them to turn it off? And, so she's got all this awareness, but she's never scared. It's never a fear thing. She's just aware of the world that she lives in. And we talk about everything. One of our favorite things to do is to sit and watch Law and Order together, and we watch the crime, and then we watch the trial, and then we talk through what's happened and how those things can be. And she loves to try and guess who done it and all these kind of things. And honestly, I wouldn't say, Dean, you could back up, I wouldn't say any of my kids live in any level of fear. They just are so aware of what's going on. And if I was to catch one of them walking down the street with their phone in their hand, they would be, that phone would be gone. But that's something that I definitely see so much of, is that people aren't looking up, I guess.
That's true.
That's true.
Happened to Jeremy and the that he knows, but let's get into the podcast before we run out of time. So you guys just started a podcast behind the scene. Tell us a little bit about that, Alana.
Yeah, so it's called Behind the Scenes. So it's about the person that the world sees and the person behind them that people rarely see. And it's everything from husband and wife, managers to talent. I think we've even got one coming up that's actually talking about what goes on behind the scenes in factory work. There's all sorts of different things about what's actually going on behind the scene to what the world sees. And it's really interesting. It started off with the husband and wife dynamic because of obviously from what we are, but we're moving into different scales because we're realizing there is always one person out there that people see and that's successful, but not realizing there's this whole team of people making it work behind them.
Yeah, so the scene is as in SEEN, not SCENE. So scene is in what
pretty much.
It's a play on words. So, and just to elaborate more on what Lana said, we're both guest speakers. When I guest speak and talk about what I've done and things I generally, and I never mean to sound arrogant, I generally say that anyone can break a will record if someone is looking after the business, the mortgage, the kids, running everything, and all you got to do is train. And so I'm very vocal in talking about Alana and talking about the teams, in the special forces. For each operator to get on the ground, it takes 7 other people you don't see. And if one of them isn't doing their job properly, then we don't go on the ground. So it's about the teamwork dynamic. So I'm very vocal about Alana. I talk about it in my book as well. That she does everything. I'm the one that the people sees, but if it wasn't for her, and so that's where we came up with the idea. And then we have entrepreneurs, we have law enforcement, we have people from various backgrounds. We have some celebrities on there. And because anyone who tells me they do it on their own is talking rubbish. It's been really interesting. We reached out to a few high-profile friends, and 50% have agreed to come on, and 50%, I like the idea, but I'm just going to give it a miss. You want to give it a miss because you don't want the world knowing that you have a team around you. So it's been interesting. But in every relationship, in any relationship, it tends to be one will sacrifice for the other's success. And if you work together, you can actually both be successful. I think Alana and I have just proven that. Alana's just been awarded the MBE from King Charles for her services to vulnerable women and mental health. So, and she has 5 books. So so we can actually do it together rather than one be resentful of the other, that one is succeeding and you're not. But the way I see it is a family dynamic. If Alana's books are all New York Times bestsellers, then that's great because it still benefits me and the family. So it really resonates pretty much for anyone in any sort of line of work and any relationship.
But I think the biggest thing we're getting 100% from every single one is communication. When people aren't communicating and they aren't talking to each other and they aren't saying how they feel, and that's when things are bad. And then as soon as they, literally, it's like some sort of magic pill. Like when we start talking and we start telling each other how we feel and we start sharing how we feel, there's been a few other methods. I think there's been some psychedelics. There's all sorts of things we've been talking about in those podcasts. It's really interesting, but
I saw the preview of it. Yeah, there was one initial one that I think that I saw the first one. Then I've seen a couple of other little tidbits that I've seen here and there around. Where is the podcast? Where can people find it? Where can they see it?
Yeah, so it's called Behind the Scene, and it's on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, everywhere really that you get your podcast. So, but my Instagram, etc. There's links everywhere. If you can't find it, message me.
We'll get that and plop that in with the interview. Jeremy, I think you have a couple of people that that maybe would be really good as guests.
Yeah, so I absolutely I do.
Yeah, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so right now we have a show that we are involved in. The 3rd episode just came out in the last couple of days, and it's about creating sustainable homesteads, communities. And the 2 hosts on there, amazing people. They really are, our goal is to educate. And the thing that they've really been focusing on is sharing with people that there's a different way to live. There's a different way to create the style of life you want to live sustainably. They like to say without having to go live in a yurt. That's their big thing. It's about being able to keep the quality of life that we know and that we become accustomed to but in a way that is sustainable, healthy for the environment, and healthy for us as humans. You know, it's about, you know, creating these lives, you know, mental, physical, and spiritual, you know, and that's really what we're focusing on. And that's what we're trying to educate people on, is by making small conscious decisions, you know, we can change the way we live in a positive way, you know, and that's just consistency and, you know, working and learning and being educated on these. So the two of them, they would be, you know, they would be amazing for you guys. I think you guys would really get along with them really well. You know, the team that we've been putting together, you know, with my partners out of Spain, which is really where I bring in most of these companies out of, and with the people that we put together here in the United States, I really feel that we're, you know, we're coming into a time where people are receptive of change. They're receptive of learning that there's a different way. And, you know, I'm grateful for you guys that, you know, you're looking at educating people, because security is a big thing. You know, people aren't going to take that step in changing things unless they feel secure. And I think educating them on these are ways and, you know, types of ways to look at life and the way that you're going to move forward that can help you, you know, so I'm grateful for what you guys are doing. And I hope we can collaborate on some stuff, because I think, Dean, you'd be great on the show. I mean, and that's the truth, you know, and I'm serious. You know, I think we're looking to bring in, you know, and that's the thing, you know, each episode is about educating on some type of new technology or some type of new way of looking at stuff. So being able to, and what we're doing is we're showing that this is a formula and a system to be able to do that. And security is a huge part of that. And we've been having conversations. So, you know, when Mary asked if I wanted to meet you guys, I would, you know, absolutely. It's a blessing.
As well, with Mary's kind of in touch with God. I'm pretty sure she is. I'm pretty convinced.
Amen. Amen. I agree.
Was looking at my Instagram this morning, and I've never seen it before. And something popped up about this family that are doing a homestead with like their entire family. Honestly, I've never seen it before, and then that's popped up this morning. But my next project that we're about to do, which is a big fundraising project, is in Maui, and it's pretty much everything you've just said, Jeremy. It's about bringing sustainability to the island, building homes with hemp, doing all sorts, just getting rid of the nonsense and bringing it back in. It's a huge fundraising project. We need to stop some of the not so nice powers that are trying to work against the Hawaiians, but there's a lot to be done. And I'm actually, probably in the next few days, I'm going to be putting together the narrative of what it is that we want, that we need, and then starting the fundraising process for that. So,
and giving it back to the rightful owners.
Yeah.
Okay. That's going to keep me in the loop on. Yeah, definitely, Jeremy. I mean, that's his, you know, construction and sustainable construction is his sweet spot. There are other things that will tie you guys together. I'm sure I didn't even know that, Alana, that you were doing that. Before I finish up, so who do you guys need, Alana and Dean, to move either one of these mini projects or these two projects together, the podcast? And I know that the people that Jeremy knows that are doing their show would be great on your show, and he just mentioned being on his. But what types of people from the security standpoint are you looking to meet?
Who's that? Sorry, for us?
Yeah, for you, Dean.
Just anyone. I can't really say it's family offices or it's corporates. You know, because a lot of security companies, a lot of corporates, like I said, have security themselves, but where we sort of come in is, as we never want to be threats, we just want to make sure there's quality control, that you're getting what you're supposed to be paying for. So from a security standpoint, go on, sorry.
A big part of what we do is vulnerability assessment. So that's the first thing we'll do with anybody as we go in. So if you're sitting there thinking, do I need security? Do I need to change my security? Do I need to up it? Do I need to downgrade it? Whatever. This is what we do. And we just look at it as a whole. As an outsider, we've got, you know, no skin in the game to start with. And then we'll go in and we'll do that full review for you. And then we'll come back and we'll give you that report. And that's really a good place to start. So if there's something that is concerning you about security, whether it be family security or through to corporate, we can chat with you.
Or travel as well. Yeah, travel's a big one now.
Yeah.
Now that
Yeah,
people
I
travel.
think you have ties to South Africa and mining in the mining industry as well. I know that you've had experience all over the place in different industries for sure. So
Yeah, I think we're in every extractive material. We're in super yachts on 5 continents. We're pretty much.
And as Dean touched on before, a big part of what we're doing is the kind of geopolitical analysis as well. So just because it says it on the news or whatever, it might not necessarily be. So if you're looking to go somewhere and you need that actual on the ground intel, then that's where we come in.
Fantastic. Last words, Jeremy? Any last comments or last words?
I'm excited to see how we can work together in some ways, because I really see some synergy here. So I'm grateful that I was able to spend some time with you guys. Thank you.
Likewise.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I feel bad we disturbed your run. So hopefully you can get...
No, it was. I got done. I just had to run a little bit quicker.
Oh, really? Oh, you finished it. Okay, yeah. Nothing worse.
It was good for me.
Yeah, nothing worse than being halfway through a session. You have to stop and then try and find that motivation to go again. I
got it all in this morning. I'm good to go.
Oh, amazing.
Fantastic, guys. Well, thank you guys. Stay with me for just a second. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody else. If you're listening to this, YouTube, anywhere else you get your podcast, go to frontrunnersinnovate.com where you'll get this interview and the bios and the LinkedIns and all the ways to contact all these people and be able to definitely connect up with the podcast behind the scenes. So thank you again, and we'll see you next time on Front Runners Innovate.